I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here in the Hub Pavilion in Davos. Very pleased to be joined by Joe Schoendorf. Thanks very much for coming along.
Well, thanks for asking me.
You are partner at Accel Partners, very involved in the World Economic Forum. A lot to talk about. Tell me first of all about your experiences coming to the WEF. You've been here for a long time. How's it changed? What do you think is the big issue now?
If you had one word to say what's changed, it's the complexity. You know, 17, 18 years ago when I started coming, and it didn't seem like it then, the world was a reasonably simple place. But if you look at, and there were 4 or 5 major issues. We had economy issues, we had the Cold War going on, big problems. But we just finished doing a global risk report in which we identified 50 major issues that the world ought to be worried about. Whether it's the euro or pandemics, you run down the list. So, it's sort of, I come here for perspective.
And tell me about the euro, and tell me about what you're thinking about Europe. How does it look from Silicon Valley when you're looking over at us here in Europe?
I have a hard time understanding how the euro is a long-term stable currency, which it has to be, without having a very uniform set of social policies around it. Currencies just don't work that way, and I'm not an economist. But in the United States, and we have our challenges with the dollar, so we shouldn't be throwing stones here. But when you have nations that are as diverse in social policy as you have in Europe, at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay the bills. And if the people who have the money to pay the bills don't want to, then things either have to change or the currency goes away. If the currency goes away, the results on the whole world are going to be very grave. It is going to impact most people who are alive today.
And as a venture capitalist, how do you look at Greece, for example? How do you look at the attempts to change the laws there?
I'm not sure that I think about Greece as a venture capitalist, and I'm not a good politician, and I'm not a good economist. I mean, I have a strong view about venture capital. What Greece is going to do is probably best left up to the Greeks. They've got a simple decision to make. They want in. If they want to stay in, there's probably a set of rules. If they want to play by the rules, they can stay in. If they don't, and I don't know this very well, but people tell me it's pretty hard to take one out. It's a pretty interconnected system.
Let's move on to Silicon Valley. When I'm from California, when I go home, I think, recession? What recession? Tell me a little about what your view is now and what you're getting excited about in terms of the investments.
Well, I just was reminded of that. I've seen a lot of old friends here. I just went to the opening reception, and everybody says the first thing to you, how's it going? And I'm mindful of the time we live in here in the world, and so I sort of say, well, pretty good. And what I really mean is it's going really good, but you don't want to go say that out loud.
Yeah.
We don't have full employment in Silicon Valley, but we have the closest thing to it. We're actually, I'll give you an example, Accel Partners. We've been doing this for 25 plus years. We keep track of all of the jobs of our portfolio companies, and we post them all online. And I look at it a couple times a month. Every time I look at it, the number goes up. And the jobs are good jobs. The number of 6-figure jobs that we are looking for people. But they're people who are computer scientists and good programmers and hardware engineers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We are short of engineers. And to say in this economy, we need people is
pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. But, it's not just Accel. I mean, my wife is also a venture capitalist, and they have a little bit different portfolio. They have the same set of issues in their energy and their biotech area. And I've lived in the Valley, as I say, probably 45, 46 years. I have a lot of friends in venture. We all have the same problem. We're looking for great people. And most of the company, there's a whole host of companies that are doing very, very well. That people haven't heard of yet, and they're growing, at pretty astounding rates. Pretty much always what happens when we have these economic downturns, that's when the smart entrepreneurs say, look, this is a good time to go start a company. No sense starting one at the top of a cycle. So we've got a lot of great startups going on. And they usually end up being drivers for pulling us out of recession. I remember 1990, the world was going to hell, PC, and here comes the internet.
Right. Tell me a little bit about, if I asked you to talk outside of your book, where would you place your bet in terms of what's looking quite interesting?
Do you want areas? I mean, I hate to talk about companies because, you know.
No, give me an area that you're interested in.
Well, I still remain very interested in the whole area of the world being mobilely connected, because we're still in the beginning of that. I'll give you an example. What was it, 10 years ago, we probably had 1 billion people on mobile phones. And 10 years from now, we're going to have all but 1 billion people on mobile phones and mobile devices that are able to connect. And those 1 billion people will mostly be people who are too young to use the phones. So.
Right.
And you can't think of a continent or a business area where there isn't going to be an impact. I was looking and watching a story today, what do they call it, Africa 53, which is sort of Amazon for Africa with African products for all the 53 African countries. What happened in the United States Congress last week with what I'll call crowdsourced democracy?
Right.
That is huge.
And this is the SOPA issue.
This is the SOPA issue, and basically the people said no, and they had the power of the internet working for them. And I want to tell you, that's not the first time this is going to happen. And
it happened just a year ago, didn't it, when we were here in Davos?
Well, and we didn't, you know, it was breaking as we were sitting here. I think it started on this day, on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it changed the world over the last year in terms of what went on in Arab and countries and what happens. And, you know, it's hard to take an event and make a historic comment out of it. But as you get the world connected and you give people the ability to have an impact, particularly as a crowd, then it's going to change politics as we know it. Politicians will have no choice but to listen.
Joe, thanks very much for stopping by the Hub Culture Pavilion here in Davos. We have to leave it there, but thanks very much for joining us.
Well, again, thanks for inviting me. This was fun.